Brewing can get expensive with fancy gear, but some of the most useful brewing related gear only costs a few bucks. So here are 5 cheap essentials for any home brewer. This episode is sponsored by Yakima Valley hops. More on them in a bit. Now, my first item that every brewer should own is a pen. Yeah, a pen. But hold on, let me explain. Now, I think we can all agree, it's important to label stuff so you know what's what. I love using my label maker, but sometimes these labels, they don't really stick to what you want. So that's why I like to use this acrylic marker. It's actually effectively white paint, and I can put this on places where this doesn't stick very well. And I love to use it on corny kegs. I know that the gas post and the liquid post do look different on most kegs, but it's not always easy to see. So I like to label it and say out and in so I can just glance and know what I'm doing. Another place where these labels don't stick very well is on tubing. So I've been using it with all of my glycol tubing so I can label in which direction the glycol is flowing, which is kind of handy to know. So when these labels aren't getting the job done, consider an acrylic paint marker. It's a lifesaver. Item number 2 is one of my favorite things. I've only ever owned one of them, and I have owned it for years. It is the bottle washer. This thing is awesome. Let me introduce you to it in case you're not familiar. So this here connects up to your tap. I have a quick disconnect, just a garden hose thing that I got from the hardware store. The water goes in here, then comes out here, and it's only released when you push this down when this is under water pressure. So it kind of locks it up when you connect it and put water in, and when you push it down, water comes out. And it just comes out of this tiny little opening here, which means it comes out highly pressurized. And I mean highly pressurized, like this would shoot up to the ceiling. Even if you're in a 2-story building, it would go up. It is incredible amount of force that comes out of this thing. So why do I recommend it so much? I actually don't really bottle anything anymore, so I don't need a device for cleaning out beer bottles. But this is very useful whenever you need a pressurized flow to clean something out. I particularly enjoy using it for keg cleaning because this will shoot all the way down to the end of a keg and clear out whatever is in that keg with a pressurized shot of water. It's also really good for carboys and stuff like that, where you have dirty items that really need a good amount of pressure in them. But I'll also use it for just beer cups. If I want to make sure that there is no dishwasher detergent left on the inside of the glass, for example, this will get that right off because it is pressurized. I kind of feel like a bit of an infomercial for bottle washers at this point. So I really do enjoy this thing. But this stays on my sink all the time. Now, item number 3 is a carbonation cap. Now, these are really intended for use with screwing this onto a soda bottle, and then you can carbonate. So you could hook this up to CO2 and carbonate this, or you could actually use this as a serving outlet if you put a liquid quick disconnect on it instead. But that is not my primary use case for the carbonation cap. I use this primarily for cleaning and for stealing samples. So, if we just take a closer look at how this works, I've got a quick disconnect here. So if I connect the quick disconnect up to the carb cap, what I've done now is I have this quick disconnect is effectively open. So anything will flow through this here and it will come out of here. So if I have got a jumper cable and it's full of, beer or something, and I want to rinse it out, this allows me to open up one end of that jumper cable and let the water pour out without resistance. And I didn't have to kind of stick my finger into this guy here to push down the poppet. This is a much better solution for that. Also, when I'm transferring beer out of my fermenter, I will use a jumper cable for that because I'm doing it under pressure. And I want to steal a little bit of that beer to take a gravity reading. So I will connect this up to my jumper cable as I'm connected to the fermenter, and that way I can steal a little sample. Now this one is metal, you can get plastic ones as well. I actually have both. I figured this one might just be a touch more durable, so I went with the metal one. And like I say, I don't think this has actually been used for its intended purpose of carbonating anything ever, but it has been very useful for cleaning and for stealing samples. Before we get to my last two essentials, a quick word on today's sponsor, Yakima Valley Hops. As every brewer knows, the best beer requires the best hops, which Yakima Valley Hops provides fresh from the source to brewers from around the world. I'm using Yakima Valley hops in every batch I brew, carrying everything from classics like Cascade to modern favorites like Galaxy and Mosaic and many, many more. Homebrewers can select specific crop years, and most hops come in 2, 8 and 16 ounce packages. Head over to yakimavalleyhops.com to see everything they have to offer. Now my next item is this little bit of tubing here. I think I got this with my Blickman system, my Blickman Brew Easy, when I first started brewing years ago, a system I no longer have. But I use this sucker every brew day. So all it is a bit of hose with on one end here a garden hose quick disconnect, and on the other end here this is a quick disconnect for my claw hammer system. So using this thing, I can shoot water into anything that this quick disconnect will connect to. That includes my claw hammer kettle and my pump. Really useful when you're trying to clean stuff out, that you can just send a chute of water down there. But I've ended up using it for a lot more than just my claw hammer gear. I actually went out and bought more of these quick disconnects. This is the male end here. You can see it's threaded. And I'll hook this up to anything else that I want to be able to shoot water through using this bit of tubing. So for example, I've connected this up to my counterflow chiller, and now I can wash out my counterflow chiller very easily by just hooking these two things together. Now maybe your brewing system uses different disconnects, sure, but the idea of taking a very sturdy piece of hose here and then putting a garden hose disconnect on one end and then the disconnect of choice for your brewing system on the other, and then buying those disconnects for everything else that you want to shoot water through, I'm going to say it's a winning strategy. Now, I don't know about you, but I think a lot of us homebrewers, we kind of like things that give us numbers, measurements. So hydrometers or refractometers or pH meters, that sort of thing. Some of that stuff can get quite expensive. Something that's very inexpensive is this little gadget here. This is a TDS meter. TDS is total dissolved solids. And this will tell you basically how pure your water source is. So if you're using filtered water, say from a tap, or if you're using reverse osmosis water like I do, I want to know how much stuff is in my water. Now this won't tell you what's in your water, but it will tell you how many total dissolved solids you have. And that's quite a useful thing to know. So with my reverse osmosis system, I want to check that it's really working, that it's really pulling stuff out of the water. And I would expect to get a rating of around 5 on my TDS meter. That tells me the thing's working. So I find that very useful, and these things are really cheap. So the way they work is there's just a couple of probes in the bottom here, and you just immerse this in water and it gives you a TDS reading score. See how clear my drinking water is. See, it's gone red, it's 82. Now that's just water out of my coffee filter, and that would not be a level I would be very comfortable brewing with because I don't know what those total dissolved solids are. See what my tap water's like. Yeah, and look, my tap water is even worse. I mean, that's not terrible, but I would know that my reverse osmosis system wasn't working too well if it was giving me scores like that. So those are my 5 essential but cheap things for brewing. I would love to hear about yours. What are some of your favorite cheap gadgets that you find very useful on your brew days? Let me know in the comments. And if you're interested in some more cheapskate process tips, I would highly recommend checking out the Cheapskate Brewer Alex's video, and you can watch that right here.